Imagine standing at the summit of the financial world, not because you chased every up and down day, but because you mastered the timeless. In the next 39 minutes, we're peeling back 75 years of investing wisdom, a legacy forged in triumphs, failures, and brilliant clarity. Timeless principles are the foundation of every great achievement in business, investing, and life itself. Trends come and go, headlines fade, and excitement around the latest hot idea eventually burns out. But principles, those truths that stand unshaken over decades, remain. They are the compass that guides you when the noise is deafening and the path forward feels uncertain. The most successful investors, entrepreneurs, and leaders don't win because they can predict tomorrow's headlines. They win because they understand the rules that never change. Think about the last 75 years. Technology has transformed everything we touch. Markets have risen and collapsed. Wars have shaken economies, and political leaders have come and gone. Through all of that chaos, a few principles have never failed the people who mastered them. One is the power of compounding. If you understand how money grows when it is given time, you unlock the closest thing to magic in the financial world. Someone chasing a quick gain might win once, maybe twice, but over a lifetime they will fall behind the patient investor who compounds steadily year after year. Another timeless truth is discipline. The market rewards those who stay rational when everyone else is emotional. Fear and greed are as old as humanity, and they drive bubbles and crashes in every generation. Those who can step back, breathe, and stick to their strategy are the ones who not only survive downturns, but also come out stronger on the other side. It's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market, guided by principles rather than panic. Consider value versus price. The two are not the same, and they never will be. Price is what flashes across your screen, what changes every second of the day. Value is the underlying strength of a business, the quality of its people, the durability of its product, and the loyalty of its customers. When you confuse the two, you gamble. When you understand the difference, you invest. That simple principle, paying less than something is truly worth, has created fortunes over generations, regardless of which trend dominated the headlines. Patience is another principle that separates winners from losers. The world celebrates speed, but wealth creation rewards patience. Great businesses don't become great overnight. Economies don't shift in a week. Transformations that last a lifetime require time, and those who are willing to wait, to endure the seasons of drought and volatility, are the ones who harvest the biggest rewards. Patience isn't passive, it's active discipline, the courage to hold on when others let go. Risk management is equally timeless. Protecting what you already have is just as important as seeking new gains. History shows again and again that the people who last the longest in investing are the ones who know how to avoid catastrophic mistakes. That means diversifying, never betting everything on one idea, and respecting that the future will always surprise us. You don't need to know the exact storm that's coming. You just need to build a ship strong enough to survive it. All of these principles boil down to one truth. Success comes from aligning with reality, not fighting it. Trends often ask you to believe in illusions, in promises of quick wealth or shortcuts to greatness. Principles remind you that nothing replaces hard work, discipline, knowledge, and time. They don't make investing easy, but they make it simple, and simplicity, in a complex world, is a rare and powerful edge. Look back at the legends of finance. Their strategies may have differed. Some focused on stocks, others on bonds, real estate, or entire global economies. But their foundations were the same. Protect your downside, invest for value, compound your gains, stay patient, and let principles, not trends, be your guide. That is why their wisdom still holds weight decades later, even in a world that looks nothing like the one they started in. And here's the truth. The next 75 years will look just as different from today as today looks from the past. Technology will evolve, industries will be disrupted, and crises will rise that no one today can predict. But the person who lives by principles won't be shaken. They'll adapt, they'll endure, and they'll build, because while trends belong to the moment, principles belong to eternity, so the challenge is clear. Don't chase the noise, don't be seduced by the excitement of the latest fad. Build yourself on the bedrock of principles that have stood the test of time. That is how you rise, how you last, and how you transform your journey from zero to the very top. The world will always try to seduce you with the newest, flashiest trend. It whispers promises of instant wealth, overnight success, and shortcuts that skip the struggle. But the truth, the unshakable truth, is that those who last, the ones who build empires, the ones whose wealth and impact echo across decades, never anchor themselves to trends. They anchor themselves to principles. Principles do not bend with the winds of hype or crumble under the weight of uncertainty. They stand tall when everything else falls apart, and they guide those willing to follow them through chaos into clarity. 75 years of investing wisdom shows one clear pattern. Fads fade, fundamentals last. Whether it was the dot-com bubble, the housing boom, or the crypto mania, history has shown us how dangerous it is to chase excitement without substance. Every single time, the masses rush in, blinded by greed and fear of missing out, and every single time they are humbled when reality strikes. Meanwhile, those who stuck with principles, understanding value, protecting capital, and letting compounding do its quiet work, came out stronger, richer, and wiser. The principle is clear: what looks shiny today is often rust tomorrow. But what is built on truth becomes more valuable with time. One of the most powerful principles is compounding. It does not scream for attention. It does not promise quick thrills, but it quietly builds wealth greater than most can imagine. A dollar doubled consistently outperforms a fortune squandered on speculation. Compounding doesn't just apply to money, it applies to knowledge, discipline, and relationships. Every lesson learned, every disciplined decision, every connection nurtured multiplies quietly in the background. When you look back after decades, that's when you realize compounding has done the heavy lifting. The principle is timeless. Small, consistent gains outlast big, reckless bets. Discipline is another anchor. The market is not rational because people are not rational. Fear and greed run through every headline, every swing, every panic and frenzy. But those who rise above emotion, who refuse to be pulled into the hysteria, are the ones who take advantage of it. They buy when others are paralyzed by fear, and they hold steady when others are blinded by greed. Discipline means you don't let the crowd dictate your decisions. Discipline means you stay true to the plan, even when your emotions beg you to abandon it. In a world ruled by reaction, discipline is a superpower, and then there's patience. Patience is the secret weapon the impatient never discover. The impatient want results today, this week, this month. The patient build results that last lifetimes. Every enduring fortune, every legendary business, every empire that still stands was built slowly, layer by layer, brick by brick. The principle of patience is that great outcomes take time. If you are willing to wait, if you are willing to plant seeds and let them grow through seasons of drought and storm, you will harvest rewards that the impatient will never touch. Risk management is not glamorous, but it is essential. Protecting the downside is how you stay in the game long enough to win. Trends tell you to go all in, to swing for the fences, to gamble it all on one bold move. Principles tell you to respect uncertainty, to diversify, to prepare for storms. Because storms always come, and when they do, those who ignored risk management are washed away. Those who respected it are left standing, ready to seize the opportunities chaos always creates. Price and value, perhaps the most timeless principle of all. The price of something is just a number, fluctuating with emotion and noise. The value of something is its essence, its strength, its durability, its capacity to endure. Chasing price is gambling. Investing in value is wealth creation. Generations of investors have proven this over and over. When you buy what is truly valuable at a fair or discounted price, you set yourself up not just for profit, but for security, for resilience, for peace of mind. Trends belong to the moment, but principles belong to eternity. Trends give you excitement, but principles give you freedom. Trends can make you feel rich for a season, but principles make you wealthy for a lifetime. The world will keep throwing distractions in front of you, tempting you with promises of quick wins. But if you have the courage to reject the noise and the discipline to live by principles, you will rise above the crowd. You will outlast the hype, and one day, when you look back, you will realize that the timeless carried you further than the trendy ever could. Numbers alone rarely inspire. Charts, ratios, and statistics can tell you what happened, but they rarely tell you why it matters. That is why the greatest communicators, the greatest investors, and the greatest leaders lean on stories. Stories cut through complexity. Stories make ideas stick. Stories turn abstract principles into living lessons you can feel, remember, and act upon. When clarity seems buried under jargon or lost in technical detail, storytelling brings it back into focus. Think about how wisdom is passed from generation to generation. It isn't through spreadsheets or technical manuals. It's through stories. A grandfather warning about debt tells the tale of a neighbor who borrowed too much and lost everything. A mentor teaching patience recalls the company they invested in decades ago that grew slowly, then suddenly became unstoppable. These stories do more than explain. They imprint. They become mental shortcuts you carry with you, guiding your decisions when the same situations appear in your own life. Take the story of market bubbles. You could explain it through data points, rapid price increases, trading volumes, then a sudden crash. Or you could tell the story of tulip mania in the 1600s, when people sold homes to buy flowers, believing prices would rise forever. Within months, fortunes vanished and entire families were ruined. That story paints a picture so vivid you don't need a textbook to understand the danger of irrational exuberance. When the next hype cycle comes around, you remember the tulips, not just the numbers. That memory can save you from making the same mistake. Stories also make discipline relatable. Imagine being told to hold your investments for 10 years instead of 10 minutes. That sounds logical, but it feels difficult in a world of constant noise. Now imagine hearing about the investor who bought shares in a small company called Apple in the 1980s, held through crashes, skepticism, and endless doubt, and decades later saw that patience turn into generational wealth. The story shows what the principle feels like in reality. It gives you a model to follow, not just a rule to memorize. Great stories create contrast between choices. They show the path of those who let fear or greed control them, and the path of those who stayed steady. They show how one wrong move can derail years of progress, but also how one right choice, made with courage, can change a life forever. These contrasts are powerful because they speak to human nature. They don't just inform the mind, they move the heart, and when your heart is moved, your actions follow. Clarity comes from turning the abstract into the concrete, instead of saying, protect your downside. You tell the story of an investor who risked everything on a single trade and never recovered. Instead of saying, diversify. You tell the story of the farmer who plants many crops, so even if one fails, the others sustain him. These images linger long after the advice is spoken. They stick because the human brain is wired to remember narrative, not theory. And storytelling isn't just about warnings, it's about inspiration. The story of someone who started with nothing, faced rejection, endured setbacks, but refused to quit, lights a fire in the listener. It makes the principle of persistence real. It makes the lesson personal. When you hear about someone who overcame the impossible, you begin to see that you can too. That's clarity not just of understanding, but of vision. The most powerful stories are honest. They admit mistakes, they highlight struggles, they reveal the messy reality behind the polished surface. When someone tells you about losing money early in their career because they chased a fad, that story is far more valuable than a chart showing average annual returns. Honesty makes stories authentic, and authenticity makes them unforgettable. In a noisy world, clarity is rare, data is everywhere, opinions are endless, but clarity is scarce. Storytelling cuts through the fog. It connects wisdom from the past to decisions in the present. It makes the intangible tangible, the complex simple, and the distant personal. That is why stories last longer than lectures. They don't just tell you what to do, they show you why it matters. The difference between those who stumble and those who rise often comes down to clarity. Those guided only by scattered facts get lost when the terrain shifts. Those armed with stories carry maps that work in any environment. And when the pressure is on, when the temptation to follow the crowd is strongest, it is the story you remember. The neighbor who lost it all, the patient investor who built everything, the pioneer who refused to quit. That steadies your hand. Clarity through storytelling isn't decoration. It is the very core of passing down wisdom. It is how timeless lessons survive changing eras, how principles outlive trends, and how knowledge turns into action. Numbers will change, circumstances will shift, but a great story will outlast them all and guide you when you need it most. People don't remember the information you throw at them. They remember the way you make them feel. They remember if your words cut through the noise, if they could hear the conviction in your voice, if they felt you were speaking directly to them. That is the power of bold, relatable delivery. It isn't about speaking louder or using complicated words to impress. It's about saying the truth in a way that lands like a punch to the chest, simple enough to grasp, strong enough to move someone to action. Boldness is necessary because the world is drowning in heft, Ruth's polite phrases, and watered-down advice. If you speak softly, your words will get lost. But when you speak with fire, with certainty, with no hesitation, people pay attention. Bold delivery doesn't mean arrogance. It means clarity mixed with courage. It means saying what others are afraid to say, cutting through illusions, and giving people the truth they need instead of the comfort they want. Relatability is the other side of the coin. You can be bold, but if no one connects to what you're saying, your message dies in the air. To be relatable, you have to speak in a language that everyone understands, no matter their background. You strip away jargon, you drop the complicated charts, and you talk about money, business, and life in terms that connect to everyday experience. Instead of lecturing about diversification, you tell someone it's like planting more than one crop so a bad season doesn't starve you. Instead of abstract talk about compounding, you show how saving a little every day grows into something life-changing over decades. Relatability means your audience feels, that's me, that's my story, that's my struggle. When boldness and relatability combine, that's when impact happens. You don't just give knowledge, you give a vision. People listen not because you sound smart, but because they trust you've walked the path yourself. They can see it in the way you speak, like someone who's tasted failure and turned it into wisdom, like someone who's held their breath in the storm and come out standing. That confidence makes people lean in. It tells them this isn't theory, this is real. Think about the way legendary mentors have delivered their lessons. They don't wrap their advice in 10 layers of politeness. They look you in the eye and tell you, if you don't respect risk, you'll get crushed. They don't say, consider being cautious in volatile markets. They say, protect your downside or you're finished. That's bold. And they don't use examples no one can relate to. They use stories of real people who lost fortunes chasing fads, or ordinary workers who built wealth slowly through discipline. That's relatable. Delivery is as important as the content itself. The same principle can inspire or bore, depending on how it's delivered. You can say, patience is key, in a monotone and it vanishes from memory, or you can say, if you're not willing to hold it for 10 years, don't hold it for 10 minutes, with conviction and it sticks. The audience feels the weight of it. and they'll remember it when it matters most. Being bold and relatable also means being human. You don't stand on a stage pretending to be perfect. You admit mistakes. You tell the story of the time you got greedy and paid the price, or the time you panicked and sold too soon. You show scars, and because you show scars, people believe the lessons you've learned. That's relatability in its purest form, not polished perfection, but authentic struggle turned into strength. The delivery has to feel urgent because it is. People don't need to be lulled to sleep with soft talk. They need to be woken up, shaken out of their habits, reminded that the decisions they make today will shape their lives for decades. Every bold, relatable message carries that undercurrent. Time is short, choices matter, and the cost of inaction is too high to ignore. In a world where most voices blend into background noise, those who speak boldly and connect deeply are the ones who create change. It's not enough to know the principles. You have to embody them, deliver them with force, and package them in words that touch both the mind and the heart. People are drawn to truth delivered with courage, but they stay because it feels like it was spoken just for them. That is the kind of delivery that cuts through doubt, ignites action, and leaves a mark long after the words are gone. Bold enough to be unforgettable, relatable enough to feel like home. It is the combination that turns advice into transformation and ordinary listeners into people ready to rise. The future has always belonged to those who believe it can be built. Optimism is not blind hope. It is the recognition that opportunities exist even in the darkest storms. Action is what turns that recognition into reality. You cannot wait for the perfect conditions because they never come. You cannot wait for permission because no one is going to hand it to you. Progress begins the moment you decide that forward is the only direction worth moving. Optimism means refusing to be paralyzed by fear. Fear is everywhere. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of looking foolish. Entire markets swing wildly because people are terrified of what might happen tomorrow. But history shows us something remarkable. No matter the crash, no matter the crisis, those who held onto optimism and acted with discipline always came out ahead. After wars, after recessions, after every disaster, the builders, the investors, the entrepreneurs who stayed optimistic created the next wave of growth. Optimism isn't about ignoring reality. It's about seeing beyond the immediate pain to the potential on the other side. Action is the companion of optimism. Optimism without action is just daydreaming. The people who make history are those who dare to act while others hesitate. They start small if they must, but they start. They invest when prices are low and everyone else is running away. They launch businesses when the economy looks bleak. They move forward because they understand a fundamental truth. Motion creates momentum. Once you take the first step, the second becomes easier, and soon you are running toward the future instead of waiting for it. Being optimistic and action-oriented does not mean being reckless. It means being courageous. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward in spite of it. You will never eliminate uncertainty, but you can build the discipline to act with strategy, even when the path is unclear. That is how fortunes are made, not by waiting for guarantees, but by building conviction and moving with purpose. Optimism fuels resilience. When setbacks come, and they always do, pessimists quit. They tell themselves the game is rigged, that the opportunity has passed, that there's no point in trying. Optimists adapt. They see the setback as tuition paid for a valuable lesson. They use failure as feedback. They shift, adjust, and keep going. That mindset is why some people are destroyed by adversity while others are shaped by it into something stronger. Action brings clarity. You can spend years reading, planning, analyzing, but nothing will teach you faster than doing. Once you act, you gather real data. You see where you were right and where you were wrong. You gain experience that theory can never replace. Waiting for certainty before acting is a trap. It keeps you stuck. Acting creates the certainty you are looking for, because every step forward reveals more of the path. Optimism also inspires others. People are drawn to leaders who believe in possibilities, not limitations. When you speak with conviction about what can be built, when you act with energy toward a vision, others want to be part of it. They feel your belief, and it gives them courage for their own journey. That ripple effect changes families, companies, even entire societies. One person's optimism, matched with action, can spark movements far bigger than themselves. There is always a choice. Sit back and watch or step forward and build. The world is full of spectators who wait for proof before they move, but the builders, the investors, the creators, those who combine optimism with action, shape the future that everyone else eventually admires. That is why the principle is timeless. Every generation has uncertainty, every era has crises, but the ones who move forward with faith and discipline rise above them. Your life, your wealth, your legacy will not be written by what you intended to do, but by what you actually did. Optimism gives you the vision to see beyond today's noise. Action gives you the power to make that vision real. Together, they turn possibility into progress, and progress into transformation. So the question is not whether opportunities exist. They always do. The question is whether you have the courage to believe in them and the discipline to act on them. If you do, then no storm, no trend, no setback can hold you back. Optimism lights the path, action walks it. And those who embrace both will find themselves building a future others thought impossible. In just 39 minutes, you've absorbed 75 years of distilled insight. What will you do next? Will you chase the buzz of today, or build the foundation of tomorrow? This is your moment. The market's pulse will rise and fall, but your legacy, that's yours to write.